And this is the critical point about the floods of 1867. They, quote, could hardly have had anything to do with man-made climate change, unquote. And then to the rank stupidity of the Albanese government, but supported by the New South Wales government and others, to cut emissions by 43% by 2030. Actually, the New South Wales government have promised to do better than that. Hey, 50% reduction over 2005 levels by 2030. This alone should have them turfed out. But as Tony Abbott wrote, not only are they cutting emissions by 43% by 2030, but they want to, and this is the critical point, quote, cut fossil fuel power from more than 60% to under 10% of the electricity grid within 8 years, unquote. Now, this is insanity. What's lunacy? Tony Abbott repeats what I've said previously, but forgive me, it bears repeating. To achieve this, the Energy Minister has recently identified that it would require the building, check it's on your screen, 40 large wind turbines every month, the installation of 22,000 solar panels every day, and the construction of 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines between now and 2030, all of which will have to be paid for via people's power bills or taxes. And while, if it's achieved, this would deliver the renewable power the government seeks, it won't guarantee the reliable power that the economy requires, especially if all the coal-fired power is closed down in the meantime, unquote. I think we're overdue for a dose of the Abbott common sense, because he makes the further point that Australia's 215 biggest emitters of carbon dioxide, which, as he points out, are also the biggest employers, will have to cut their emissions by 5% each year. I mean, this is Marxist stuff. Or they have to buy abatement at a cost of up to $75 a tonne. As Tony Abbott says, the government is likely to further deindustrialise Australia, and by taking the view that all new fossil fuel projects pose unacceptable climate risks, the government will gradually kill the coal and gas exports that currently earn more than $200 billion a year in national income and deliver the tens of billions in royalty revenue needed to sustain programs like the National Disability Insurance Scheme, unquote. Tony Abbott alludes to a speech that he made in 2017, for which he deserves the highest praise, addressing a global warming policy foundation event. Now, the speech can be found at tonyabbott.com.au. The former Prime Minister said then, 2017, quote, "The only rational choice is to put jobs and standard of living first, to get emissions down, but only as far as we can without putting prices up." He said after 2 decades experience of the very modest reality of climate change, but the increasingly dire consequences of the policy to deal with it, anything else would be a dereliction of duty as well as a political death wish, unquote. Tony Abbott in 2017. Well, the death wish now sits on the shoulders of Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen, and now it seems Dominic Perrottet and Matt Keane. Our energy crisis is man-made by those who call themselves politicians. Tony Abbott got it right when he concluded, although the Albanese government got lucky when the coalition essentially me-too'd its climate policy at last year's election, very soon climate wishful thinking will start to crash against the reality of blackouts, not being able to make things here, and even more expensive electricity, unquote. Well, we owe Tony Abbott a debt of gratitude for having the guts to continue to prosecute this case, knowing that the lefties will go after him. But he'll be proven right. I've warned about this for many years, and I've copped it as well. As I've said many times, governments might want to put our economic well-being at risk, and they are at the moment, but it's no reason why we should endorse their idiocy. I think we need more Tony Abbotts.